Buenos días, señores, o buenas tardes, o buenas noches. Hoy vamos a hablar de los demostrativos. Vamos a hablar de los adjetivos demostrativos y de los pronombres demostrativos. Esto es algo que va a ser muy útil cuando hablamos español. Es algo bastante fácil y algo bastante importante. Welcome. Today we're going to be discussing demonstrative adjectives and pronouns, which are something pretty easy to learn and that I think that you'll find very helpful in your Spanish speaking. First we'll be looking at demonstrative adjectives. Demonstrative adjectives we have in English as well. These are words like this, these, that, and those. And we use them to talk, to signal things. So for instance, if I have two books, I say one book is on one side of the room and one book is on this side of the room, and I say, do you want this book or do you want that book? In Spanish, we also have a third distance that we can use that we often translate in English as that over there or those over there. Okay, so we would have three distances. We'd have this or these in the plural, that or those in the plural, and then going a little bit further, that over there or those over there. That third distance that we use is something that really only comes into play if we already have something that's a little bit further away from us. So, those are demonstrative adjectives. Demonstrative pronouns, as you see, are very similar. In Spanish, we will be using the same words for our demonstrative pronouns as for our demonstrative adjectives, with the slight change, slight modification that the pronouns will have accent marks and the adjectives do not have accent marks. Demonstrative pronouns, as the name suggests, are pronouns. So if you remember from any other pronouns we've looked at, pronouns are words that we replace another noun. And so in a demonstrative adjective, we would say this book. In a demonstrative pronoun, we would just say this or this one. And so, for instance, if I am speaking about books, it may be helpful, instead of saying, do you want this book or these books or those books or those books over there, instead of saying books so many times, I can simply say, if we both know that I'm talking about books, do you want these ones or do you want those ones? Or do you want these or do you want those? And so when we use a demonstrative pronoun, we're able to get rid of the original word that we're discussing and simply replace it with this pronoun. Okay, as I've said, the pronouns will be basically the same as the adjectives, which makes life pretty simple. We'll merely have to add an accent to all of those words. Okay, so let's take a look at them. When we look at demonstrative adjectives, we have a couple of different ways that we can organize them. I'm going to look at them as far as the distance. Okay? So, este will be our first one that we're looking at. This is for near. This is what we use to discuss something that's really close to us. Something either in our hand or just in front of us. This is for things that are a little further. And these will be for even further. Okay, so as I mentioned a few minutes ago, we have this and these, we have that and those, and we have that and those over there. Now in English, we would simply have the singular and plural. We'd have this and these. However, in Spanish, as you're aware by now, all of our adjectives have to agree with the nouns that they're describing, which therefore gives us four forms of many adjectives. We generally have a masculine singular, a masculine plural, a feminine singular, and a feminine plural. And so this first row will all be masculine singular. So este is the word we would use to mean this when we're referring to something that is masculine and singular. For instance, este libro would mean this book. Este libro would mean this book. In the feminine singular, we would say esta. So if I'm speaking about a house, I could say esta casa, and it would mean this house. Esta casa would mean this house. In the plural, masculine plural and feminine plural, we would say estos and estas. Okay, so este libro, this book. Esta casa, this house. Estos libros, these books, and estas casas would mean these houses. Okay, so that's all something in front of us, something that we're holding, something right there in front of us. If we get a little bit further away, we have a very similar word, and one way that I help students remember is to simply say, if someone's really close to us, or if something's really close to us, we can see the tea that they're drinking. If something's a little bit further, you can't see the tea. It's a silly memory trick, but it should help you. So if something's close, you can see the tea. If something's a little further, you can't see the tea. And therefore, because we can't see the tea, the word is ese. The same word without a T. Esa, esos, and esas. Okay, so we now have this book, este libro. That book, ese libro. This house, esta casa. That house, esa casa. These books, estos libros. Those books, esos libros. These houses, estas casas. Those houses, esas casas. If we go a bit further, so now imagine you're standing in front of a house. You're right on top of this house. There's a house across the street, and then there's a house at a couple of 100 yards. So the house across the street, we would say esa casa. The house right in front of us, we would say esta casa. And because we have a third one, we need a third word to designate something that's even further away, and we use this new word. And so these words will be aquel, aquella, aquellos, and aquellas. Aquel, aquella, aquellos, aquellas. Okay, so these are demonstrative adjectives. Remember, they will always be paired up with a noun. Right? We'll never just say este, we would say este libro, esta casa, esa casa, aquella casa. The only place where this might trip you up a little bit as far as memorization is that you should make sure to pay special attention to the masculine singular forms. All of these other forms look as they might expect, you might expect them to. Right? The feminine singular ends in A, masculine singular in OS, feminine singular in AS, in all of those forms. The masculine singular forms may look a bit strange to us because you would expect it to end in an O and it does not. Okay, so just be careful on that. We'll look at another word that will end in an O in a minute. It's another type of demonstrative, and that's not to be confused with these. So just pay special attention to those ones. Okay, so we've now looked at demonstrative adjectives. I'm going to erase these nouns from our list. And let us now say that we are now looking at demonstrative pronouns. We're now moving along to demonstrative pronouns. In order to make these demonstrative pronouns, we simply have to put an accent on the first E of any of these words. If there's only one E, then it goes on the one E that's there. If there's two E's, it goes on the first E. So este, esta, estos, estas, esas, esos, ese, aquel, aquella, aquellos, aquellas. These are now demonstrative pronouns. Okay, these are no longer demonstrative adjectives, these are now demonstrative pronouns. Accent marks of this sort do not change our pronunciation of the word. This word because of the rules of pronunciation in Spanish, is already pronounced with the natural stress on that E. So by writing an accent, we don't change the pronunciation of the word. The word is este and este. Both words are pronounced exactly the same. The only reason we write that accent mark, therefore, is to let the reader know that what we're looking at here is a demonstrative pronoun and not a demonstrative adjective. So that accent mark merely distinguishes between the two types of demonstratives, adjectives and pronouns. Okay, so these are all our demonstrative pronouns. Let's take a quick look at how we might use them. Let's say that I were to be asking you about shirts, and I want to say, this word means do you want? So I say, ¿Quieres estas camisas o esas camisas? Do you want these shirts or those shirts? I can respond in one of two ways. I can either say, I want those shirts, right? Or I could have chosen these shirts, so I say, could have quiero esas camisas or quiero estas camisas. Or, because we both know now that I'm talking about shirts, I've just asked you, do you want these shirts, or do you like these shirts, or those shirts? I can simply say, quiero esas, which means I want those ones, or I want those. And therefore we don't have to be repeating the word camisas so much. Okay, so demonstrative adjectives, demonstrative pronouns. Remember, our demonstrative adjectives need to agree with the noun that they're describing, as adjectives always do. Demonstrative pronouns have to agree with the word that they're replacing. So because we're talking about camisas, we have to use the feminine plural form of the demonstrative pronoun. Demonstrative pronouns have accent marks merely to distinguish between adjectives and pronouns. Okay, one last thing before we complete this lesson. There may be times when we don't know if what we're pointing out, right, what we're demonstrating, is something masculine or feminine. Right? We may not really have any idea. For instance, if I were to be walking down the street and stumble upon a strange package wrapped in black plastic, and I look at it and I want to know, what is this? What is this? Well, I can't really choose the masculine or the feminine because I just have no idea what it is. And so, we also have neuter pronouns. We don't have neuter adjectives because if we knew what the noun was, we would know whether we should be using a masculine or singular adjective to describe it. So we only have neuter pronouns. This can also be used, for example, if I walk into my house and there's a party going on and nobody told me about it, and I say, what is this? Well, there I would use a neuter demonstrative pronoun. Neuter demonstrative pronoun. Because I'm not saying, what is this, referring to something specific. I'm referring to a situation to which I can't really ascribe masculinity or femininity. And so I would use the neuter demonstrative pronoun. We have 6 of them. We have esto, eso, and aquello. Notice that even though they're pronouns, they're neuter demonstrative pronouns, even though they're demonstrative pronouns, they don't have accent marks on them. Okay, so esto, eso, aquello. The plural, simply estos, esos, and aquellos. Okay? That's it for demonstratives. So study up, do the PowerPoint if you need a little bit more information. Check out the quiz. Feel free to contact me for any doubts that you may have. Y os deseo mucha suerte y que lo pasen muy bien con los demostrativos. Chao, hasta luego, adiós, nos vemos, chao.